Okay, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing tonight?
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Francis. Good evening, Mr. John. The chairman is just in, so I will add him to the show now, and he can continue the show. Good evening, sir. We just kicked off, so.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. This is the AFSCOAN TV show on the World Cup, Africa in Qatar World Cup, which aims to look at the performance of African teams in the World Cup in Qatar this year, looking at us from a coaching perspective. So this program is brought to you by AFSCOAN, the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, which is an association aimed at bringing an identity, credibility, and respect to the job of scouts and coaches in Africa for Africans. Thank you very much. This program, to join AFSCOAN, just do join, email join@afscon.com. And if you're an aspiring coach, an aspiring scout, and you think that you've got something to offer to African football, please go for it, because we're here to actually empower people who have the interest and ability to actually be coaches in Africa and rely less on foreign input in our game. With me, I have our members. All this program is going to be all about members of AFSCOAN. Niran Atobatele is our member and the director of the program. Thank you very much for all your effort.
Thank you, sir.
Francis Okufi is a member. He flitters between England and Nigeria, but he spends a lot more time in England than in Nigeria. And I'm privileged and honored to have on this program today the head coach of Sierra Leone. He doesn't need much introduction to the Nigerian, but to the world. Let's talk about him. John Kester has been coach of Sierra Leone for a few years. He played his football in England. He was based in England until he was called to come and be coach of the national team of Sierra Leone, which is exactly the kind of thing that we want in our game, to be able to go back home and give something back to the game, as long as there's an enabling environment for it. Now, the only other thing I would like to say about John before we kick off this program is that John Kester masterminded a game in which I was involved, and I shouldn't really be talking to him right now. He was in charge of the Sierra Leone team that actually came to Nigeria, Benin City.
Oh, I'm 4-4.
4-4. This is the
guy.
Oh,
yeah. I remember that game.
This is the guy. He masterminded that game, and people were quite surprised when I walked up to him immediately after the game and was saying hello to him, because here's the enemy. Here's the enemy. John, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right. Listen, World Cup Day 3. And the first thing we need to talk about before we go into the nitty-gritty of the football is Qatar. More controversy. It seems like it's never ending. Francis, what is going on?
Very good question. Looking at it yesterday, it was quite shocking. Yes, Iran deserved a penalty, but I mean, compared to the England one, it was nowhere near it. That was a stonewall penalty. I mean, there were two incidents there which you could have picked either of them and given England a penalty. It wasn't looked at by VAR and the ref wasn't called over. Yet something a lot less than that incident was given to Iran. I kind of, not being biased, but I just kind of find there's some sort of inconsistency there. I don't know if it's the officials they appoint in the VAR section, or they just missed it, to be honest. Yes, I think there was another one. There was another one again today. That one was the Argentine one against Saudi Arabia. I think that was correct. But it's just the inconsistency of the whole thing. We brought VAR into the game to really help the players and to help the refs. But it seems to be another controversy after another, to be honest.
John, before tournaments, and I'm sure you know about this as well, before tournaments, the referees go into a meeting with VAR and hold big meetings as to being consistent with the rules of the game. The VAR also, they have their meetings every time so that there's consistency. It seems like if the guy who was in charge of VAR from Uruguay didn't make that meeting, they won in the England game against Iran. He didn't turn up for that meeting, did he? Otherwise, he wouldn't have given that penalty, would he?
Well, Tunde, for me, I don't know what to think about VAR. Just like what Francis said, it was brought in to help the players and officials, to have clarity around the game. But I'm not very clear around which way it's going. There is it's very difficult when decisions are made. There's one rule for one for another. That's how I look at it. They'll make one decision, get it right. The other one is the same thing, and then they get it wrong. So I don't know. For me, I just try and ignore that bit, obviously, because if you don't, then it's a waste of time watching matches, because they're going to make mistakes. There has to be a gray area around which way we're going to go. If we're going to go this way, let's all go this way. If there's going to be one rule for one mistake, let it be for the same mistake. Everything has to be the right way. But at this moment in time, we're getting it wrong again. So I don't know which way we're going with that.
Right. Well, look, we can argue this all the way till tomorrow, and then we won't get very far. So let's concentrate on the football, because in our first episode, we did say that, controversy aside, let's see what will happen in the football field. Now, before we came online, 2 days ago, we watched Qatar play the World Cup opening game. Niran, I mean, look, all respect to Qatar as a country. The football that they played against Ecuador on the day, for goodness sake, World Cup level, what do you think?
Honestly, it was very poor. It was extremely poor. Like from the first minutes, it was like they had no idea what was going on at that level. To be honest, if they didn't host the World Cup, there's no way they would have qualified. I don't think they would have qualified. Although they are Asian champions, they won the Asian competition. So
how did they get there?
I really don't know how they won the Asian. The likes of South Korea, Japan, even Saudi Arabia and Iran, they beat those teams and they won. It's quite surprising because we didn't watch tournament, so we don't know how it happened. But they won that tournament, but the performance was poor, to be honest. I don't know whether it was Ecuador that had their number, because in a way, in football, you have to also give credit sometimes to the team that does the winning, that played the good football, which Ecuador did on the night. But honestly, there was no good moment from Qatar. No good moment at all for me from the match. No good moment.
Okay, now we moved past that, and day two started, and we got into this game that we talked about, the game of England against Iran. I'm blessed at the moment because I've got Francis and John, two people who actually lived the life in England and can actually tell me what they think, because they will be wearing a little hat that says England, even if it's very little. Francis, does this high score, does that install England as favorites?
Not quite. It doesn't install them as favorites. For being a follower of England and Nigeria, you sometimes just don't get overexcited because you get to a certain peak and they let you down. I think with England, like I said before, I think their best bet will be semi-final. If they don't achieve the semi-final, then it's a big letdown. I wouldn't say they're favorites, not just yet. Again, I always say to things, it's about the mentality. I don't think England are mentally strong enough to be considered as favorites. I think for the very first time in many years, have I heard an English player say, we can win the World Cup. And that was the very first time was Harry Kane. Every other time, they've just said, they're not so sure. Whereas if you ask an Italian or Brazilian or Spanish, can you win it? They always put themselves as favorites, even if they've not had a very good tournament. So with England, I wouldn't just start getting overexcited as them being favorites. I think they'll have a good tournament. Semi-finals for me will be good.
John, tactically, and from a coaching perspective, which is why we're here, really, what did England do right or wrong in that game against Iran?
To be honest, Tunde, I just said I haven't watched. I didn't watch that match yesterday, or whatever it is. I was traveling back from Dubai with the seniors. We had a couple of friendly matches, But again, I haven't looked at them in the last 6 games prior to this. For me, scoring 6 probably yesterday was probably building their confidence again. From a coaching perspective, I'll take one game at a time when it comes to England. I think that's the best way and see how they progress. But for me to sit here and say, well, yeah, we'll look at this, we'll look at that, I don't think it's right. It depends on how they progress in the other games. It's very, very important.
Niran, you saw the game England against Iran. You saw some players that, when coaches like John, when they make their selections, sometimes, you look at the way the club form, and you see club form, and you're thinking, how did he manage to get a starting shirt? Like Harry Maguire, for goodness sake.
Okay.
I mean, how did he manage to get... Gareth Southgate seems to have his number, and they have each other's numbers. So Harry Maguire, Mason Mount will not be missing from the England lineup, even if they were on crutches. What do you think?
First of all, I always tell people that you cannot think for the football coach. His ideas are in his head. You know what I'm saying? One thing I know about Gareth Southgate and his England team, his English team, is that they concentrate a lot on set pieces. And if you look all over the country, Harry Maguire is one of the best in those situations. He's one of the best, and also so and when you play a back three, actually, which England will go to when they are playing the bigger sides, as they did in the Euros and the last World Cup. In the back three, Maguire doesn't seem to have too much problems. From the games I have watched him in the back three, doesn't seem to have too much problems. And also, he's also good at set pieces. Also, Mason Mount had a good game as well, but we just have to look. This is the first game, and they had it easy. Let's be honest. They had it easy in so many ways. So it's the first game. Things have gone right for them, but it was an easy match, judging by the scoreline. It was an easy match. Iran didn't really push in the first half. They were just trying to cover spaces, trying to block. It was more like damage limitation. They came out in the second half and they played a bit better, and they scored 2 goals. So maybe the second half was 2-2, if we're being honest. So they improved the second half and they got the 2-2 when they started attacking England. So we have to just wait and see how things pan out. It's maybe too early to say England are favourites or certain players are now doing very well. Let's just give it time.
Francis, we always talk about the midfield being the fulcrum of a team. You know that sometimes if the midfield is great, then then every other thing gels. Now, a midfield trio of did you watch the game, England-Iran?
I did.
You saw Declan Rice, Holding, and the 2 others. How did it work in the 3-5? What do you think in how it was 3-4-3, 3-5-2, but there was always a 3-man midfield around the middle of the park there with Declan Rice being the anchor man. What do you think of that? Do you think that England can actually take that and play against the bigger teams using this formation?
Yeah, I think they can. Bearing in mind that apart from Jude Bellingham, all the others playing the Premiership, so they're kind of used to the pace of the game and the tactics which a lot of the coaches use. You could see the way it happened yesterday was that even though it was that formation set, those midfielders got forward a lot of the time, and you can imagine England scoring 6 goals and Harry Kane didn't score one of them. It's so I think that formation it works for England. One thing I must say about Gareth Southgate, which I'll take my hat off to him, is he does choose players which are maybe club-wise they may not be top-notch, again like the Harry Maguire, but when it comes to the international side, they actually know how to gel. So I think that formula has worked well for for England. It worked well yesterday. You know, you can only beat what's in front of you, and you can only plan for your next game. Personally, it was good. He made the substitutions at the right time. They came in, they scored. I think it was 3-1 at one stage, and then from there they scored another 3. Even the substitution, I mean, he took off Harry Kane, brought on Wilson. From there, another midfielder, and they scored the last goal. I think you can only play and beat what's in front of you, and you decide on what formation to use. But to be honest, it was a good formation for me.
Nigerian Niran, Bukayo Saka. I remember up until probably about a year ago, everybody was clamoring for the fact that Bukayo Saka should come and play for Nigeria. Why is he going to play for England? What? Now, looking at the development of this boy, do you him in the Nigerian team, or has he made the right choice going to play for England?
Saka is, I think Saka is a generational talent. So I don't think he's going to be a player who's going to be in and out like other Nigerian guys who have chosen to play for England, like John Fashanu, Agbolaho, and a host of others. They've kind of regretted it because they were not generational talent. So after a while, they were not up to that level to play regularly for the English national team. But I think Saka is on that level where he's always going to be there. So far he doesn't have any injury or anything like that, he's always going to be in that England team playing regularly. So that's what's going to be. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his 2 goals. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I hope he's going to keep on banging them goals and maybe win a best young player or something in tournament.
Before we go to Africa, I want to say one last thing and ask John. John, you haven't seen the game. I need you to say it. But Jude Bellingham, although you haven't seen the game England against Iran, but Jude Bellingham in that midfield, what have you known of this guy? Young 19-year-old to have taken the world by storm with that performance yesterday.
You know, Tunde, when you think about the boy and his development in Germany, it doesn't surprise me at all. You know, you can tell he's gone into a country where the mentality is very different, approach is very, very different, and you can see why he's doing very, very well. I've never doubted that. I've never doubted how he's developed. So for me, it's no surprise. You know, going back to the old England situation, just like what Francis said, we as coaches sometimes we look at different situations when we bring players into the national teams, and that applies to Maguire. You know, with Southgate, I can see from a coaching perspective that with Maguire, when he goes with a back 3, you know, he does very, very well and they win games. So that in itself is something that sticks in our head as coaches in terms of partnerships and what works. So you can see the reason why Maguire is back in there. When he goes in with a back 3, he does very well. I don't think he's very good in the back 4. Hence why when England go in the back 3, he does very, very well. So, you know, that's how he looks at it. Again, he's proven that with the result yesterday, that when Maguire plays in the back 3 and they do that, it gets results. So sometimes that's how we work as coaches in terms of when we do.
Okay, thank you. Now, just to remind our viewers, you're watching AFSCOAN's wrap of Africa in Qatar 2022, which is a World Cup program on the African performance in Qatar this year. It's brought to you by AFSCOAN, the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, which is an association that aims to give integrity, identity, and high-level coaching in Africa by Africans. We're very, very intentional about the fact that we want to take hold of our game in Africa by coaching. And to join AFSCOAN is very easy. Send an email to join@afscon.com and we'll show you in having the drive and the knowledge of the game of football. We are joined by Francis Okufi, who is a member of AFSCOAN. John Kester is the head coach of the Sierra Leone national team, and he is a member of the Coaches Club, we call them, which is an esteemed level of AFSCOAN. We've got Niran Atabatele, the member of AFSCOAN, and also also director of the program. And we have just been joined by Farid Fakir, who is a Moroccan coach from Morocco, who is a software designer, app producer. He does all these gizmos that you and I cannot do in terms of designing apps for performance analysis and all that for our game. Farid is also a very esteemed member of AFSCOAN from Morocco. Farid, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody, for welcoming me. It's nice to talk with you. And I'm really glad and really happy to be part of this team and this family. We have a lot to say about Africa and football in the world. And I'm really happy that today we see that African team introduce the World Cup with high power. I mean, we are not like in the past. We were having our head looking in the ground. Now we are really proud, and it seems that the coaches, the teammates, everybody involved in the African football, they are really proud of participating to this World Cup, and they are really giving intensive actions on the green, on the field, and this is really appreciated. And I'm sorry that Tunisia could not make the difference against Denmark. We got a good lessons from Saudi Arabia, and we expect again that Morocco tomorrow will give a good opportunity for African football. And regarding Senegal, they were just missing some small details that could have made the difference, and missing the participation of Mr. Sadio Mane. But now Africa is on the top. It's not like in the past, the missing or the remaining teams. We are now on the top, and I'm sure that we will have some teams qualifying for the huitième de finale.
Thank you. Thank you. We will get to all those ones very shortly. But I want to touch on, in 2 minutes, I want comments on that shock result of earlier today. Argentina, goodness gracious, what were Arabians, what did they smoke before they came to the stadium to come and shock Argentina the way that? John, please tell me what your colleague Harvey Renan, what did he do? What did he go to eat to get that result?
I think, Tunde, you know, when you go into competitions like that, to be honest, with regards to Saudi Arabia, they've got nothing to lose. You know, everybody expects Saudi Arabia to lose. So the motivation there is the belief around that we can go and do a job, because nobody expects us. Just like Sierra Leone going into Nigeria with the 4-4 you just spoke about. We went into Nigeria knowing we're going to go and try because they're a good side. They're one of the best in Africa. Well, we went there, you know, to give 110%, thinking, well, again, when we started and we went 4-0 down, it's like we have to go for it. It's either we go and get something or we get done. So I think that was the mentality. And again, it's about the belief is something that when you go into games and you approach games and you start getting the belief, and the belief start creeping in and starts creeping, it gives you that momentum where you're thinking, oh, we can do this. And it's just something that comes in the group. And I think that's probably what happened today when you talk about Nigeria. You know, you're talking, about Argentina and Saudi Arabia, you know. So it was like, no, you know, let's see how far we can push them, and it's worked for them today.
Francis, well taken goals though by the two Saudi players who took those. That shocker of that second goal was one to die for.
Absolutely, and if that was scored by any of the, as you quote, GOATs, the whole world would have said, what a brilliant goal. That was an absolute brilliant goal. The Saudis, and if we go back slightly as coaches, that coach has coached 2 African teams to AFCON victories. You can see the difference when you have a good coach and you have players who listen. They listen to what he said. They had the self-belief. This is what we need in Africa. Good coaches and self-belief. But the result, fantastic. I mean, I was watching the DSTV and the Super Sports today, and this guy, I can't remember where he's from, he said, oh, Saudi Arabia are going to beat Argentina 2-1. And I looked and said, just like what you said, this guy's been smoking. And we all laughed at him. We had Asamoah Gyan on there, and we all laughed at him. And when it happened 2-1, I was like, my goodness, they have pulled it off. It's a brilliant result for Saudi Arabia. I'm really proud for them. As for Argentina, well, I can't really say much. I think they're going home.
They were awful today, to be honest. They didn't offer a lot.
No, not at all.
But they will get better. They will get better with time. They were almost going out when we played in the same group like them in Russia. Niran, do you remember in 2018? And
Yes, sir.
eventually they hit us when we least expected it.
Yes, sir. But look, if you look, I look at that group. Yeah, I said, Mr. Francis, what he said today, I said it in one of my groups. I wanted to qualify. Mexico and Poland are not easy teams. They are not teams that you are thinking you're going to beat before you step on the field. No, they're going to make it difficult for you, and if you're going to win, you're going to fight for it. So I don't see them getting 6 points from those two games. So that's where the problem is. I don't see them getting 6 points from Poland and Mexico. They won't get 6 points. So it's dicey for them, very, very dicey.
Let me give you patriotic Nigerians something to cry about before we leave this subject. Saudi Arabia did to Argentina what Nigeria was not able to do in 5 consecutive World Cup games.
We met them, yeah. They're always in our group, and we never
They were
won.
always in our group, and we were always losing to them.
Fact.
And Saudi Arabia taught us how they did it.
Yeah.
Now, we'll go to Africa now. And Farid has spoken about Senegal. But, John, how much of an impact is Mane's absence? We talked about it in our first episode. Mane was not there yesterday. And it seemed to show, not only in the play, but also in the dressing room, on the field. The leadership didn't seem to be there. How much would Mane's absence come to play in Senegal's exploits in the World Cup this year?
Oh, I think it's it just shows again obviously in the first game. You know, there are certain players in a group where when they're there, the players just have that belief that things will happen. They will make things happen. And we have that. There is just special players that we always have in a group that we know whatever happens when they're there, things will happen. And that's what Senegal have in Mane. You know, and other teams have that, like Argentina have that in Messi, other teams have that. But with Senegal,
You had it in Kai Kamara. He upset everybody. He messes everybody.
Yes. You know, with Sierra Leone, we had Kai Kamara. So just him being on the pitch again makes a big difference, you know. So it was always going to be difficult for Senegal to pick themselves up knowing Mane is not there anymore. It's like, you know, that it just dampens everything for him. But I'm sure, you know, with after this one, they'll come good. I know that. It's you know, going into the World Cup for Senegal, I think it's been absolutely fantastic. You know, so Ali has done a very good job in the time that he's been with Senegal.
Excellent. Francis, we're looking at potentially what may be a Senegal-England round of 16 game in a couple of weeks. How do you see that go? How do you see that?
That's a hard one to answer. It's gonna go. It will be England. Sorry to say, it will be England. I think if memory serves me right, it's going back to England against Cameroon, and Cameroon were that close, and England came back. Again, I always say it's the mentality of things. I mean, yesterday, Senegal were that close to getting a good victory, at least a draw. Yes, okay, the goalkeeper, you know, 2 faults of the goalkeeper, but like I say, the goalkeeper is still a player. So it could have been a centre half, it could have been a striker. It's the goalkeeper. What was he doing? He's the world's best. He cost them the points. He let it in. England, Senegal, I think it's going to be England, to be honest.
Nina, back me up here, please.
Okay, sir.
I think that in the Senegal versus England, and I think we're jumping the gun quite a bit here because there's still quite a few games to go. But in a game where England come up against a Senegal team, This England against a very plucky Senegalese team that can be compact if they can get the goalkeeping right. Now, the goalkeeping side, Edu Mendy has been having his troubles in Chelsea. He's lost form, and Graham Potter has lost patience with him and has started using Kepa Arrizabalaga. And you would know that there was a problem. Immediately you see that Kepa has assumed the number one position in Chelsea. But then you will expect that he will come into the national team and probably, kick on again. Do you think that if the goalkeeping side is right, that Senegal will struggle to get past the round of 16, even if they have to play England?
It's a difficult one to predict football matches, but I think the match against the Netherlands, Senegal did well. Honestly, they did well. We spoke before the show. I myself, Mr. Francis, and John. It was just unfortunate mistakes from Mendy, and something that can happen to anybody on any given day. There's no player that hasn't made mistakes in football. But it just probably he made two mistakes in a couple of minutes. In a few minutes, he made two mistakes. But I think if that error wasn't there, it would have been a draw. And I think Senegal just need a bit more. They need a bit more in the final third. They need a bit more to create clear-cut chances. I think from the African team so far, I think they're not creating clear-cut chances. They are not. So I think that's a bit of a problem. But I think their defense is good. Their backline is good. But just unfortunate to concede those goals. I don't think they'll be conceding easy goals like that anymore. If Kepa can get himself, Mendy can get himself correct. I don't think they'll concede easy goals. But they also have to, in the final third, create clear-cut opportunities for the attacking players.
That's a big problem, and that's something they have to work on very, very quickly because they don't seem to have a lot of time to get it right. Farid, we're going to Tunisia now.
Yes.
And we finished watching Tunisia. In that last game, in that last minute, when the referee rushed over to the VAR screen to go and check whether there was a penalty for Denmark, everybody's heart stopped beating.
Yes.
Because normally, by the time the VAR says, mate, I think you need to go to the screen and go and check, normally 9 times out of 10, it points to the spot. This guy said no.
Yes.
Were they lucky?
They were lucky. They were lucky. They were lucky for this final issue. But my point for Tunisia is that they missed so many actions, so many opportunities, and I'm afraid that these kind of opportunities in a different game they can pay it immediately. I mean, in the first half they missed like 3 or 4 actions that they could have scored. And these opportunities with a team in a 16 or maybe a team with more power, maybe they will lose immediately. And our problem now is that if we follow and if we continue to miss these opportunities, at the end we will be frustrated, because how can a striker has 3 or 4 opportunities and don't score once? That's the best, and we could not accept that the issue of a world game will depend on the last action. Can you imagine all the efforts they have done to be qualified, all the intensity they put on the game, and at the end we were counting on the luck of this last action. So that's my frustration for that game. And they were really intensive. They give really good power to the game. They were really strong in the middle, but in the front, it was not good. And that's my frustration. And I'm sorry for that, because all the games like Senegal and now Tunisia, we lived with frustration of not being able to score once, just one. That's our frustration.
But you do know, and I'm sure John will attest to this, that on another day, Tunisia would have gone on. They play very well. It's not the first time that they will be playing well in World Cup football. Tunisia, they're very, very astute. They play very good football many times, and they don't have that finishing product. They don't have that end product many times, but then they go on and lose. This time, at least they didn't lose, John.
Yes, correct.
Well,
Correct.
yeah, it's sometimes it's like that. You know, we went into the Nations Cup as well. I didn't think they were very good, and then they've qualified for the World Cup as well. You know, but again, it's building. I think that will build their confidence, not losing games, especially in a high level competition like the World Cup. So for them, I think it's a good start. You know, it's a good start.
In a group that has France and Australia, where do you see Tunisia finishing this group, John? France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. Now, Denmark and Tunisia have now got 1 point each. Each of them still have to play France and Australia. How do you see Tunisia performing this one?
I think it's you know, looking at Denmark, I think they've had a good campaign, you know, around winning games. You know, you got France as well. I'm not too sure about France, not the France that you know well. I think the thing now, Tunde, with football is you can never say never around games. You know, it's on the day. It's not like before where you know for facts. For example, Argentina gone against Saudi Arabia, you know Argentina are going to win. So things are changing. The football is changing and the mentalities are changing. So for me, I don't like to predict matches anymore. You know, I want to see how they go into matches, approach it, and see what happens. You know, so it's everything is open. Everything is open.
Niran, what will you change about the Tunisian team? Because when they're playing at the back, they defended very well. They defended very well. They were astute. They were solid against the Danes. But going forward, the end product was not there. Sometimes they run, and then there's not enough people in the box to actually receive the service. What will you change? What do you think is lacking? That final thing that is lacking in the Tunisian team from a coaching perspective now that can see them over the line against the likes of Australia and take the fight to the French if they have to.
Mr. Tunde, you make a good point about the fact that they didn't have enough numbers in the final third. They didn't get those numbers in the final third. Farid, the striker, I've forgotten his name. The centre forward, Farid. Can you help me out, Farid?
Yeah.
Forward, the Tunisian centre forward. His name?
Al Amri or
no, the one that started the game, the number 9. Well, I've forgotten his name, but it was isolated in front. It was isolated in front, and it was more like they were playing hopeful balls towards him, you know. And but in a way, I think we talk about how valuable that point is, as Farid said, how valuable that point is, and maybe the coach just calculated and put one and one together. That okay, let me just see if I can get 1 point here. Maybe struggle for a point also against France. And maybe in the when you play Poland, sorry, in second game you can go for the win against Poland, then struggle for the points on that point against France. Maybe that's what they want to do. But the first match is important not to lose that first game, and maybe that was in the coach's thinking. But in terms of what they need to change to make sure they have better final third occupation, is that they have to, those midfielders have to get forward more. They have to get forward more. From the game I watched today, none of them they didn't venture, they didn't take too many risks. They were just cautious in their approach.
I'll remind our viewers again, you're watching the World Cup Africa in Qatar, which is the World Cup show presented by AFSCOAN, the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, which is an association that aims to bring integrity, credibility, and respect to the job of scouting and coaching in Africa by Africans. We are intentional. Here, we want to actually make sure that we take control of the technical side of our game by Africans, And we are going to be a show that will be predominantly occupied and presented by members of our own association. So we've got members like Francis Okufi, we've got Niran Atabatele, who is also director of the show. We've also got our esteemed member Farid Fakir, who is from Morocco, and our member of the Coaches Club. It is the elite division, the Premier League of AFSCOAN, and he's John Kister. That is the head coach of Sierra Leone's national team. I think Coach Sidesh Singh is trying to join us from South Africa, but he's having some network issues. When he's able,
he's been going on and off.
Yeah, he's going in and coming out. So now, Farid, this is for you. Tomorrow, I tell you something. 4 years and a half ago, we were preparing time
Yeah.
the Nigerian team to play our first World Cup game against Croatia. I studied Croatia. I went everywhere to go and scout them. All of them have interesting names, Kovacic, Modric, all these itches.
Brozovic, Mandzukic,
exactly. To the point where when I got back to camp after I had gone around scouting them, my name became Tunde Adelokunvic. So because they had the IT to my name as well. So now the meeting room of Morocco will be buzzing right now. They're preparing to play a game against Croatia, which is the first World Cup game. Now, Croatia, World Cup runners-up about 4 years and a half ago. After they beat Nigeria in Russia, they actually went on to get to the final, which is quite remarkable. So I felt quite proud that we didn't lose too badly to them. It was only 2-0, but it was a loss all the same. Now, Morocco. Everybody has a lot of hope in this team. This team always goes into tournaments with high hope. When I say high hope, I mean really high hope. Because of the infrastructure, because of the fact that there's a lot of players from all over the world who come together and say, we are Morocco. Because of the management and administration of this country. But then when it comes to big tournaments, they don't show up. Will it be different this time? And will we see something different from the Atlas Lions of Morocco when they play against Croatia tomorrow?
Yes. So here in Morocco, we are all confident about the team of Morocco because we are sure at 100% that the coach, Mr. Walid Regragui, has chosen the best players available actually all over the world. So that means that there's no frustration about having one player missing. So we have the best team actually in the paper. Everything is mixed to make a good tournament. The second point is that, Morocco is a mixed culture inside the country from the north to the south with different regions. And we have to consider also all the players playing outside in France, in Spain, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, etc. And I think what was missing in the past edition of the World Cup or the African Cup was the guy, the coach that will be able to make the good communication between the expatriated and the local players. That was the problem we had in the past. We were having a lot of expatriate players, and they are not talking the same football than the local players, and they were having more privilege than the other one. Today, with the Regragui, they are all on the same stage. The best one will play, and he succeed in creating this kind of good atmosphere and good environment for making these teams good and strong enough to win this game. That's the first point. The second point that we don't have to miss, the King of Morocco has made all the necessary for having the most supporters from Morocco going to Qatar. He made a special flight ticket at less than 500 USD, going and coming back. So that makes that a lot of Moroccan people went and are actually in Qatar. So we will see tomorrow that the Moroccan team will be really pushed by his people and his supporters. So if you have a good coach that has a good strategy and is able to make these players playing together, if you have strong players and if you have the support of the supporters, I think and I'm really sure that they will be really powerful. And the last point we have to consider is that Saudi Arabia made a good game today, and all the world is happy for them. The coach of Saudi Arabia is Hervé Renard. He was the former coach of Moroccan team. So I'm sure also it will create something like positive energy for Walid Regragui. He will not accept that Hervé Renard is making better than him. So there is this small challenge that will push the Moroccan team to have a good game. And regarding Croatia, they all have 4 years more than what they had in the past during the 2018 year. So I'm not saying that they are young, they are old, but they're getting a little bit youth, if I can say.
Now you've got an interesting dynamic in that squad. One of the biggest issues that we faced, because I'm a Chelsea person, I know that Hakim Ziyech was a big divisive factor in that team over the last few months. You've now managed to bring him on into the team, into a team where he was not a part of the qualifying series. Francis, how would you react if you were handling, let's assume you were handling some of the Moroccan players, and all of a sudden, one player who was actually divisive, almost responsible for the sacking of the previous manager, from what we read, has now been integrated into the team and is now expected to work some magic. How much pressure does that put on the others? How much pressure does it put on the team? And how much pressure is it on the coach?
Thank you. To start off with, I think before they actually went to the World Cup, personally for me as a coach, what I would have done would have been to call all the players who had helped get to the World Cup initially, have a general meeting and discuss, there's no harm in him saying, I'm thinking of bringing this player back. Yes, he's an exceptional talent. It's like having a Zinedine Zidane or a Maradona and saying, oh, we won't bring him back because he's done so-and-so. Hakim Ziyech is like that to the Moroccan team. So I think he's probably had a meeting. They've discussed, the Moroccan FA have probably said, okay, it's fine. How do you feel? And obviously the team are happy with it. I think sometimes in life, we just have to move on. There's no need of punishing him. If we just to say he didn't qualify with us, so therefore leave him on the side. If he's going to be a benefit to the Moroccan football, why not bring him back? But again, if he's going to destabilize the team, then I would have said no. But I think they've sorted it out. I think Morocco are happy. I think we had one session where before when I said to you, Morocco are a team where they have it all, but they just fail to deliver every single time in the competitions. I think they're more stable this time around. I hope he proves the coach right, because to be honest, it's not just the pressure on the coach, it's pressure on him as a player, because there would have been one player that he's taken that person's spot, and he has to justify being in that squad. We have the similar situation with Matip in Cameroon, but Samuel Eto'o stood his ground and said, nope, he's not coming back. This is a complete different way, and the Moroccan coach and the federation have said, yeah, okay, he didn't play the qualifiers, but we still want him back. Personally, as a coach, I would have had to sit down, have a team meeting. If the team are happy with it, bring him back. If not, don't bring him. But I think the team are happy with him having him back, and I think the Moroccan people are as well.
Niran, apart from Hakim Ziyech, you also have players like Sofiane Boufal. You have players like Ashraf Hakimi, that bombing down that right flank as a right back. What sort of formation do you think that the Moroccans will come up with tomorrow that would actually stifle and make life difficult for an aging Croatian team, an aging Croatian team that still relies on a 36, 37-year-old Luka Modric to actually dictate the pace.
I know Modric is in the squad and he's quite old now. I think 37. Rakitic is he in the squad as well? Rakitic, Perisic, those guys are all in their 30s. Really, they have to they have to high quality, pressing, running. They have to outrun them because these are old guys. They might not be able to run as much as the Moroccan guys. But I've not watched too many Morocco games lately, so I don't really know how the coach likes to think, how he likes to play his players, who he likes to play, what formation he likes. But when you look at Croatia, it's an aging squad. There's no doubt about that. As Farid said earlier, aging squad, and I think they can take advantage of it. If they do the right things, they will definitely take advantage of it.
Farid, within the first minute of the game against with Tunisia against Denmark, first minute of the game, the defender of Tunisia made a clearance. He made a clearance and he celebrated it like if Tunisia just won the World Cup.
Yes.
How much does that passion, that patriotic passion, how much does it dictate in the level of play that Moroccans will bring into the game tomorrow?
Yes, it's all about, more and more we are talking about mental. And like this kind of game, the Tunisian guy, in the beginning, he shows to the Danish team and to the world that he is the boss in the defense. He's showing them that this is his field. Nobody will pass him. So, the attitude is really important. We are playing World Cup. And World Cup is to say who is the best team in the world and who are the best player. So if your players are in a positive way, they do it in the ground. And we expect that also Moroccan, they are also getting this positive energy. This is all about mentality because today, football, the level of football has increased, and the difference between the European and the other is getting less and less. And now the difficulty we had in the past was the ability to play all together. So now we know how to play all together. Our African team, the only thing that we're missing was the mentality. And in the past, we were losing games because of the bad mentality, because we were expecting that the game is finished. But now, what we learned from Saudi Arabia and from Tunisia, and I expect tomorrow by Morocco, is that we will win the game also in the mentality.
Okay. Now, again, I've got to remind ourselves for the last time that we are watching an AFSCOAN World Cup program, Africa in Qatar, which is a program previewing and reviewing the African performance in Qatar, the World Cup this year, produced by the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, which is a AFSCOAN, which is an association aimed at giving identity and credibility to high-level scouting and coaching in Africa by Africans. If you want to join AFSCOAN, if you actually feel that you've got something to offer AFSCOAN or to offer your continent of Africa in the area of coaching and coaches, email join@afcon.com and we'll let you in. There's all manner of levels of membership in the association, and we are always going to be here. This program will be produced and anchored always by members of AFSCOAN, because we want to enrich ourselves, we want to empower ourselves, we want to show the world that we have actually got something to offer. Now, the day after tomorrow, we will have the other two African countries that will be taking part, and that is what we're going to round up on. We're going to have Switzerland against Cameroon. I love what Samuel Eto'o is doing in Cameroon. As the president of the Football Federation of Cameroon, Samuel has taken the bull by the horn and he is taking charge of things in a very, very good way because he has played the game at the highest possible level. Nobody can tell him anything about how the World Cup is because he has been through a few himself. And now he's now got an opportunity as an administrator to work with his colleague, his former captain, Rigobert Song, to go there and play in the World Cup. They're playing Switzerland. Ghana, not long after, will play against Portugal. Before you talk about Cameroon, let's talk about Ghana. Ghana saw Nigeria off to get to the World Cup. Portugal, that they're going to play against, saw Nigeria totally off in the run-up to the World Cup. This will be an interesting game between Ghana and Portugal. How do you see Ghana and Cameroon going forward? Nira?
Yeah. Both. I think both Ghana have a difficult group, as you guys spoke about on the last show. But Cameroon have a chance. You both have chances actually. They are both good teams. The players that have come from that have joined Ghana from after they changed their nationality, the likes of Inaki Williams, the Brighton player, um, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Brighton Lamte. I think there's Salisu and Co. Those guys are they are good additions and they'll definitely improve the quality of the squad. But we just have to hope that they do well. The Cameroon situation I spoke about as well. Cameroon, I think Cameroon. I can see Eto is trying to do things right. From when he's come on, I've been following what he's been saying, the things he's been doing. He's trying to make things better because he's trying to make things just like he sees it when he was playing in Europe. You understand? So it's a good one for them. It's a plus for them. I actually, and I hope that Nigeria will have that kind of combination one time. Maybe we would have a player that was played for so many years in Nigerian national team, being the president, and then playing somebody as his friend as a coach, because it will make the work very seamless. They'll be happy to work, happy to see each other in the morning, and it won't be a matter of you forcing players on each other. So I think they will do well. I think Cameroon, even though they might not, if they don't qualify, they will play well. But I expect to see them in the round of 16 at least. Cameroon.
Francis, Cameroon is in the same group as Switzerland, as Brazil, and as Serbia. Your thoughts?
Again, it's what Farid said earlier, about the gap between what African teams were then and what they are now. I think we should always, personally, as a player, not at the highest level, I always went into a game thinking, I don't care who the opposition is, I'll match them like for like, and I want to beat them. I think that's the same thing Ghana, Morocco, Tunisia, Senegal, Cameroon should always put before them now. Football has changed from the times of when you'd come up and you'd get a team like, the old Turkey or Switzerland, and they used to get hammered 9-0 and 10-0. The game has changed. A lot of the Ghanaian players and Cameroon players are foreign players. So they're used to coming up against the likes of Switzerland at club side. I feel they can do it. I don't see any reason why any of the African teams should be scared of anyone. And that's the honest fact. I don't see any reason why. Because even if you look at Brazil, they're not all playing in Brazil. A lot of the Brazilian players are playing in the Premiership, playing in the French league, playing in Germany. So I don't see any reason why they should be afraid of them. They come up against them every single week. I don't see any reason why they should be afraid. Ghana, Cameroon, they're just as good as all those other teams. And that's the reason why Saudi Arabia were able to pull off a shock today. Because I can tell you, if you had asked 100 people, would Saudi Arabia beat Argentina today? 99 or 98 would have said to you, no. And the one person who would have said yes, everyone would have laughed at him that you're so stupid. But it happened. And it will happen. There's going to be a lot more shocks that are going to take place. Ghana and Cameroon, they have nothing to worry about.
Well, I mean, it's all about us encouraging our own to stand toe-to-toe with the opposition. And that has to come not only from the administration, but from the dugout, from the bench. Our colleagues, our bosses, our friends, the coaches have to be able, and the first time ever that we're going to have 5 African countries coached by 5 African coaches in the World Cup. We've got to send them the vibes of positivity. We've got to send them the vibes of saying that our countries have to stand toe to toe with high level opposition because we're just as good as the rest of them. Let's take a leaf from what Saudi Arabia has done and do the same for the opposition and see how far this can take us. I want to say thank you very much to everybody who has come. John Kester, he's not here, but I say thank you from his very busy schedule. I want to say thank you to Sudesh Singh because I know that he tried to join us from South Africa. He couldn't. Most importantly, to Francis, to Farid, and Niran, our director, you're absolutely wonderful. You're top ace. We thank you very much for all you've done. Now, to you who are watching us, don't just leave it there. We need your comments. We also need your subscription. Subscribe to us so that when we're back again in a couple of days, you get the notification button switched on and you will know that we're back because we will come back. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.